Sometimes we take a photo without a proper setup, but we like it too much to let it go, and we'd like to convert it to black background. I like this one, but the background here is unacceptable, so I'd like to edit it into a moody black background portrait. First, I'm gonna lower the exposure in Lightroom to make the horse darker. I'm also increasing texture and clarity a few percent. Remember guys, do not overuse texture and clarity. You should never increase it more than 20%. Now the horse became too yellow, so I'm adding a bit of red tint in a white balance slider. And now I'm adding some light in shadows, just to reveal details in the darkest parts. I push the slider all the way, but usually what it takes is somewhere between 20 and 50%. Now a bit of cropping. Cropping can also be made in Photoshop. And now, like we remember from previous lesson, edit in Photoshop. Now we want to make a selection of our subject. So let's try select subject command. As you can see, selection is very rough and with some unwanted details. So let's deal with that. Click select and mask from the select menu. It opens a new window. And again, whatever is selected is showing as a red overlay. Actually, in the right corner we have a view panel, and here we can choose the view mode. We can display our selection in different ways that are handy in different situations. My favorite is still a red overlay. Also guys, here we have global settings panel. Please keep everything zeroed here. Choose the brush tool from the toolbar. It's the third from the top. Change the brush option to minus and erase all unwanted parts of the selection. Yeah, here we go. It doesn't have to be very detailed for now. Just remove the big parts that were mistakenly selected. Now let's switch to Refine Hair tool. This is the second from the top. And a brush option as plus. Make your brush small and soft and paint gently along the edges of the selection, which means along the edges of red overlay. I will speed the video up a little. Obviously, I'm not so fast in real life. Also, please be aware that refining brush mode is very, very demanding for your computer processor. It takes a lot of processor power, so if you have an older computer or not well packed with memory, you might need to wait a bit before the final results appear along your brushed edge. Also, the smaller the brush, the better the results. This is because if you make the brush too big, it will pick the other elements, the other details around the edge. So it will be fooled by some patches of color or other details around, and your selection will be rough again. When you notice a place which should be selected but is not, just switch for a moment to the normal brush and paint it over. Like I did it here with the tips of the ears and some other details. We are still in Select and Mask window. Listen guys, editing in Photoshop is all about switching between tools. Usually you have a few tools available for one task, and it is always a bit of a guessing game. Of course, with experience, you'll be able to recognize beforehand which tool can be the best, but it still will be a little of hit and miss. Also, you need to switch between the tools depending on situation. That's why non-destructive way of editing, which means using layers and masks rather than working directly on the image, is so great, because we are not losing the original data. In proper selecting, the most important is to find the edge and to make it as soft or as hard as it is on the picture. So if you're selecting the part which is out of focus, your selection edge must be soft to mimic the softness of the original edge. I have a course, Difficult Selections Made Easy, which deals with all the selecting problems, but it's the advanced one, so not all of you can benefit from it yet. Anyway, Photoshop's Select and Mask feature is very, very helpful, and it's a good start to more advanced editing. When we have refined the selection edges, we go to Output option. This is a small window at the bottom right corner, and we are choosing New Layer with the Mask. And with this option chosen, we click OK, and we are taken back to the main Photoshop window. But look here, what happened? We have a new layer with a beautifully masked subject. And if we switch off the mask, we can see that nothing actually disappeared from the image. Everything is there, just masked out. Let's add some black background layer underneath the horse. Click this little plus icon in the layers panel. It will make a new layer. Let's name it black. And let's fill it with black color. We have a black layer underneath the horse, and now we can make some final adjustments since we can see how our selection actually looks on the black. We will be working on the mask, so make sure that the mask is active. On the layers panel, you have a little black and white rectangle near the layer icon. This is our mask, so make sure that you click on it, and you will see a kind of little rectangle at the corners of the icon. It means that the mask is active, not the layer itself. So whatever you paint will be painted on the mask, not on the layer, and this is exactly what we want. So we are picking the brush, setting the flow to a very low value, setting the color of the brush to black, and very gently painting on the mask whatever we don't want to see. There are some stray hair, there are some details of the background that we don't want to see, but we want to kind of gently blend into the black background. That's why the low flow and very gentle moves in the direction of the hair. Now looks much better, doesn't it? Now we are still on the mask, but now we are picking another tool, Blur tool. We need to soften the edges of the selected mane, just a tad, to make the edge a little smoother. So pick the Blur tool, decrease its strength to a very, very low value, and brush gently along the hairs of the mane, just on the edge of the mane. We are working on the selection, not the image, so only the edge is affected. We don't want to soften the mane itself. Now let's retouch all spots and imperfections. Pick the spot healing brush and remove all the small imperfections. It's best to do it in magnification, between 100 to 200%. Spot healing tool is great for retouching small specks of dust, tiny imperfection of the skin. It's not suitable for retouching big areas. We don't need a source here. We just click the imperfection and the spot healing brush fills it with pixels similar to the surrounding pixels. Now, so this was quite a big patch, and as we can see, by using spot healing brush, we have lost the skin texture here. Color is okay, but the texture is gone. So let's undo it and use a different tool. I think the best start will be a stamp tool, a normal stamp tool, and then a healing tool to finish up the edges. You already know how to use them from previous lessons. Back to spot healing tool to finish our retouch. And again, switching to healing tool because this dark patch is too big for spot healing. And spot healing brush again to get rid of those muddy droplets on the horse's belly. In more advanced editing, we use separate layers for healing and stamping, but here I want to make things as simple as possible. Looks good, but what bothers me here is color cast. The color of grass, the green color of grass where the horse stood, is reflected in his coat, so the lower part of his body, his belly and his legs look a bit too greenish. Click on plus icon to create a new layer. This gives us a new empty layer on top of everything. Let's call it color cast removal. Now, from the layer blending mode menu, choose color. Pick a soft brush with a very low flow, then pick the color from the horse's body, from a place without the green cast. To pick the color, click with the brush tool, whilst having the Option key or Alt key in Windows computers pressed down. And paint gently over the places that are too green. As you can see, when the layer is set to color mode, the only thing that changes when you paint is actually color. The texture and the value stay untouched. The value is the level of darkness. You need a really low flow here. Now let's compare before and after, and we have gotten rid of an ugly color cast. Now, if it's too much, we can lower the layer opacity just a bit to the point that we think works the best. This is where we lower the layer opacity, which means how much this layer is visible. I can see one more place with color cast here. It's the edge of the ear. Let's make a small brush and paint it too on the same layer. And it's done. Now we will be dodging and burning, but this time we will be using more professional method, dodging and burning on curves. This is a method commonly used for retouching human skin in beauty portraits, like those adverts of cosmetics and makeup. Here we have adjustment layer panel. Click on this little symbol of curve, and when you click on it, you are getting a new layer. But this is not a regular layer, but this is a so-called adjustment layer. It means that you can only do adjustments on it, and those adjustments will affect all that is below this layer. Anytime we can change the adjustment on this layer or remove the layer completely, and it won't affect the image below. It is very important because this way we are not destroying the original data. So the curves adjustment layer opens a pop-up window with the actual curve to adjust. You can open it in any time by clicking on a small black and white circle on the left of the layer bar. This is symbol of adjustment layer. So we can bend the curve to make the image much lighter. And we can also move the curve end to lighten the shadows. You can do it quite severely, just don't blow up the highlights completely. Now we click on the mask symbol. This is this white rectangle, like on any other layer. We made the mask active, and now we can invert it by clicking Command-I or Control-I in Windows. So now the adjustment layer is invisible. It is still there, just masked out. Let's call this layer dodging. Now we are repeating the process and creating another curves adjustment layer. This one will be for burning. Click on curves icon in adjustment panel. It creates a new adjustment layer. Bend the curve to darken the whole image. Move the end of the curve a little, and change the layer name to burn just to avoid confusion later. Invert the mask. So now we have two adjustment layers, one for dodging and one for burning. Both are invisible because they are masked. You remember, black is what's invisible, white is what's visible. Now everything is black on both adjustment layers, so everything is invisible. But if we paint white on the mask, we will reveal what's there on the layer. Let's start with the eye edit. So we are picking a very small brush, just a few pixels. We are setting the brush flow somewhere between, 10–20%. Our dodge layer mask is active. You can see this little rectangle in the corners. And we are painting the catch light in the eye. We see the actual image on the screen, but we are actually painting on the dodge mask. So our brush strokes reveal the adjustment layer on which we lighten the image with curves. Now we are painting over the iris on its lower side, but do not paint over the pupil. We don't want to lighten it. I lowered the flow a bit to lighten the white of the eye. Here we need a very gentle treatment, so the flow must be lower. These of you who use mouse instead of tablet must lower the flow of your brushes much more. Mouse is not pressure sensitive, so the flow will always seem much stronger. Lower the brush flow again to 1 or maybe 2%. I usually use 1%. And start dodging the places on the horse's face, the places that you'd like to enhance. Do it in a very small movement in the direction of hair growth. This will give you the most natural effect. I will speed it up because it's a lengthy process. The main principle is to enhance natural shapes, make the veins more distinct, kind of add some light to make the horse's face less flat. And here we have to be very careful to not overdo it. It's like a plastic surgery. It should be done very gently to avoid this artificial look. It is time-consuming, but this is what professional beauty retouchers do all the time. I usually put good music on, something that I really like, and I just take my time to do it properly. Now you have about 5 minutes of watching me dodging, so you can move the video forward. In reality, it was, I think, about 20 minutes. Even though it's time-consuming, dodging and burning with a very small brush is the most natural way and gives the best effects. Much better than making your brush bigger and painting with broader strokes. In my opinion, it's really worth the effort and time. Now we are switching to the blur layer, and make sure that you have the mask active, you know, the rectangle in corners around the mask icon. And we can darken some parts a little. Same principle, small brush, extremely low flow, and painting with short strokes in the direction of hair growth. With burn tool, you have to be even more careful. It is very easy to overdo it and achieve a rather horrible effect. That's why we start with dodging. Burning will be only an addition, and not much is needed. Now you have around 1 minute of burning to watch. We make our brush really big and reveal a bit of darkening at the bottom parts of the horse, legs and belly, to create a bit of a fall-off. Again, very gentle here. Always think plastic surgery when performing beauty edit. Now we can switch off and on the adjustment layers to check if we didn't overdo it. If we did, switch the brush to black and paint on the mask with a very low flow to hide the excess of the effect. Now we'd like to add a few stray hair because we lost a few hair ends when masking. And this part is mainly for tablet users, since it will be almost impossible to paint hair with a mouse. Mouse users, you need to skip this part, unfortunately. So we make a new layer, normal layer, not adjustment one. We make a very small brush, 3 pixels, sometimes even 2 pixels, with medium hardness. We set the flow between 30 to 50%, and we click this little icon here. This icon means that the brush is pressure sensitive. Now we pick the hair color. It should be the lightest shade of forelock hair you can find. And paint a few strands of hair, not many, just only a few. Now, if you press the R key, you can rotate your canvas on the screen. This makes painting easier. Your moves are more natural. Rotating canvas is very handy. It only rotates the view of the canvas, not the image itself. So if you press Escape, you are back to normal view. So we are now painting a few stray hairs just to avoid the situation that they are cut off on the selection edge. And in similar way, we are painting whiskers. More alternatives for repainting whiskers you will find in my difficult selections course. We're almost done here, but now we'd like to sharpen the image a little, especially if you work on RAW files, which are not being sharpened in camera. But we have our image on several layers now, so what to sharpen? Okay guys, now I will show you the best way to sharpen your images. Also, sometimes you will need different amount of sharpening depending on printing technique. With this method, you'll be able to change it anytime you need. This method works with all images, not only horses, not only black backgrounds. It's the best way to sharpen your images. Sharpening should be always the last action we perform. When everything else is done and ready, then we sharpen, not earlier. So we are making a new layer on top of everything. Let's call it sharpen. Now we are going to image, apply image command. And it opens a pop-up window. Here we have the name of our image as a source. We choose merged as a layer and normal as a blending mode. And voila! Now we have a copy of our retouched and edited image on a separate layer. Now we go to Filter, Other, High Pass. And we choose the value of around 2 pixels. See what we've got here? A kind of grayish image with some details visible as darker or lighter pixels. Now, when we change the layer style to soft light, the gray disappears and the image becomes sharper. And we can always remove this layer and make a new one with like a different amount of sharpening. Or we can make a mask on it and sharpen only a certain part of the image. Now I think we can recrop it slightly. The beauty of black backgrounds is that we can add more area to the image at any time if we feel that it is cropped too tight.